Good afternoon and welcome back to the 37th Space Symposium. I'm Rich Cooper of Space Foundation, joined today by Tom Roeder, new to the Space Foundation team, and Sandra Irwin of Space News. I've got some very seasoned pros here who have watched this community grow and mature, and we're here to share with you some of the thoughts and experiences that we have found in the course of this first full day of symposium. To begin, obviously today had a big national security presence, starting off with Air Force Secretary Kendall, followed by Space Force's General Raymond. Both of those persons delivered a number of key points. I'd like to start with you, Tom, as to any takeaways that you saw from Secretary Kendall and General Raymond.
First off, Secretary Kendall talked about his experience during the Cold War, and so that we need to get used to being back there again. Okay. Which is quite alarming, to some degree, but it recognizes the reality that we're at with Ukraine. One of the other things that we heard is about this, General Raymond described it as an explosion of commercial space that brings all sorts of possibilities to the military that they haven't seen before. And so they're really embracing the commercialization and how that impacts military space and national defense in terms of new, smaller satellites, in terms of the availability of technology, the dispersal of that technology in low Earth orbit. It's going to be a game changer.
There are a lot of capabilities we're talking about. Sandra, what did you hear today?
Well, just to add to what Tom said, the key message that we heard today from Secretary Kendall and Chief of Space Operations Raymond is that the challenges in space for national security are big and getting bigger. The array of anti-satellite weapons that are now being deployed by China and Russia are very concerning to the United States. And this is not science fiction. These are capabilities that we're seeing right now. We saw the Russians blow up a satellite in orbit and generate thousands of pieces of debris that are putting a lot of satellites on the space station at risk. We saw China deploy a satellite with a robotic arm that can grab another satellite. So these are capabilities that need to be addressed, or the United States has to address right now to make sure that U.S. satellites can be protected. And I think that was one of the key messages that we heard today, is that the Department of Defense has to invest and start investing right now, which they are with the new budget that they proposed for fiscal year 2023 that has at least $5 billion in additional funding for the Space Force beyond what was appropriated in 2022, which was very good news for the new branch of the military, the U.S. Space Force.
I want to bring both of your threads that you talked about, the confidence that was expressed in the commercial industries, because I think that was a huge resonating image, huge thread that they wanted to make sure everybody heard. And I think we've all heard in the past at symposiums and other programs where we've had lots of officials, I will say, giving lots of positive words about industry, but today I think you really felt that. And there was a tremendous amount of confidence that was expressed there. The three of us were fortunate to be able to sit in on the press conference that General Dickinson of Space Command gave. And one of the persons at that press conference asked him the question about companies as targets. And they were referring to Maxar and Planet being able to dispense imagery as quickly as they were, being able to show what Russian forces were doing with Ukraine. What I thought was fascinating in Dickinson's response was, quote, "This is a problem of many," end of quote. And his point was, you can't defeat all of these images because there are so many other capacities, other capabilities, other providers. It's not just one company that does these things, that there's a suite of companies that are providing that. And the other piece, to pull further on that thread, both the PD&I and other Pentagon officials here talked about reaching out to industry for partnerships. Now, again, we've heard that in a lot of other programs. We've seen it in speeches, op-eds. But again, I think we have seen a number of military officials here from the United States, but from other countries that are walking around here, looking at these capabilities, recognizing they have a real confident partner. Did you see the same thing?
My heavens. Today, I was sat in a press conference with Derek Turnier, who runs the Space Development Agency, and they're actually doing it. This commercial off-the-shelf commercial partnership, we're actually seeing in action with launches starting next year of a commercial, or basically a commercial style low Earth orbit constellation for communications, and a similar constellation for infrared tracking of things like hypersonic missiles. They are trying to desperately get ahead of a threat, and they're finding that these small, agile players are a big force multiplier in doing that.
I think to add on to what Tom said about the Space Development Agency, they are becoming a very important customer for the commercial space industry. And we reported a story today about Secretary Frank Kendall and Derek Tournier, the director of the Space Development Agency, visiting York Space. That happened yesterday, and York Space is a satellite manufacturer based in Denver. And they visited the facility because this is a purely commercial company that has won a very big Department of Defense contract to produce 42 satellites for this low Earth orbit constellation. So that's a very visible example of how the Pentagon is tapping into the commercial industry. And as far as General Dickinson, U.S. Space Command, he actually today handed out what he called a commercial integration strategy. It was like a brochure where he's saying we need commercial capabilities, and this is a message to the community, to the industry, to the Department of Defense, that we have to have these capabilities integrated into the military weapon systems and communication systems and navigation systems, but they still don't have a strategy for how to do that, so that's something that's going to have to be worked out in the next months and years.
General Raymond, to do that, used the wooden shoe analogy. And so this is about the shoemaker who very carefully crafts a shoe, and then he very carefully crafts another magnificent shoe. And that's the age that we have been in with military satellites. Now, instead of going to that shoemaker with the wooden shoes, they're shopping on Amazon. And it's pretty incredible.
A quote I heard from General Dickinson in his press conference this afternoon is that the growth of the commercial industry frees up DoD to do a lot of other things that they need to do. So they have a force multiplier, and it's the men and women and the organizations that are behind us here on this exhibit floor and elsewhere that they're seeing come to bear. I also thought it was great to be able to hear General Dickinson say, quote, "We need space-savvy soldiers," which again, there are a lot of capabilities that we want our men and women in armed forces to be able to have, but obviously familiarity with space and its capabilities are something that they're going to implore on them. I'm going to bring one other point, and I recognize that NASA is not a military agency, but to hear that confidence again, as I was hearing the One NASA panel this afternoon, Ken Bowersox, former astronaut, now at NASA headquarters, made a point that NASA sees that there will be core exploration missions, corporations will be leading and doing exploration missions within the next 2 decades. And again, I will say that was a huge, it was one of those moments sitting in my chair that I could not have imagined anyone at NASA headquarters saying those words and actually meaning those words, because again, they have capabilities that they've never had before. Final reflections on that, because then I'd like to jump onto the game changers.
The final reflection on commercial industry and the role of commercial industry in national security. One important concept to understand is resilience, and the military is looking for resilience, and commercial brings that. You don't just have a bunch of expensive military satellites that are viewed as very important targets for adversaries. Now you have a whole array of commercial capabilities, so it will be very difficult to target everything. So if one network goes down, they will have another network as a backup. So the role of commercial in that concept and making resilience happen for national security is very important.
Excellent point. There was another piece that happened today at what was a new piece for Space Symposium called the Game Changers Lunch. Sponsored by Palantir. It was, I would commend it to our viewership here and those of you who are registered for Symposium virtually. If you get a chance to take a look at this panel, you will not be disappointed. We want to pull some highlights that you ought to take a look at with this. Again, we had a stellar panel of talent that was up there. Again, they were re-emphasizing space as a true tenet for the digital economy. Now, again, there's a lot that was happening in that as they were unpacking that. But I thought Peter Beck of Rocket Lab had a great quote that I want to share. Quote, "Sometimes we have to invest in the nutty to make progress." And what stood out to me in that is, I'm sure Elon Musk, as well as a lot of the other companies that we are now celebrating today, everyone was sort of looking at them thinking this is crazy. But again, we heard from members of the venture community that were leaning forward to talk about how they're looking to invest and their approach on these particular things. But one of the things I thought that stood out for me in the lunch was, this industry is really here. There is no more of sort of the snicker factor or that, oh, it's not really real. No, it's really here. And Silicon Valley and venture capital partners are seeing that and want to take part in that. Did you have any quick takeaways on Game Changers?
I thought that panel just really brought it together as far as the energy, the vibrancy that's happening in the industry with the technological innovation, and at the same time, the concerns that they have. Is business going to continue to boom? I mean, when are the good times? Are these good times going to end? I think there's all these businesses now are looking for the government and the private investors to step up and make sure that a lot of these capabilities that are in R&D right now come to fruition into true operational capabilities.
And again, space success requires a team of teams approach for success.
And with that, one message that we've clearly heard today from industry is a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want space to look like the country. They really want the industry to better reflect who we are as a nation, and that means including more women, including more people of color. And what we saw today was many, many companies signing a pact, a commitment to do just that.
We're going to come to the DEI pledge that was signed here by 24 charter companies, and there are more in the wings who are signing that. But before we jump to that, I want to pull a few more threads on Game Changers that I think people need to take away. We did hear an unequivocal bit that, quote, to win the space race with China, we have to do what America does best, innovate. And they talked about the real competitive environment that the space community is in. Again, we've got 90 nations now operating in space, more looking to jump in, and as such, America's got to continue to be on that leading edge, as do its partners. Another piece to the DEI piece is building the talent pipeline earlier. It's great to be able to do that in upper grades, but I think we heard from a lot of other people. Peter Beck talked about this relating to his daughter, making sure that they feel that they can be a part of this community and see themselves in it. And Melanie Strickland had a point talking about what are you doing to do those, what are you doing to make sure that you are leading in that. She made a point that they make it a principle to have a 50-50 leadership, 50% men, 50% women, which was really, as she saw, the action behind signatures with the DEI pledge.
Yeah, I mean, the key message was that this pledge that we heard about today is a great step, and these words are very powerful words, but now they have to be followed up with actions, and so people are going to be looking for specific actions over the coming months and years, and we'll hear more at the next Space Symposium.
Another sign that the industry has really changed, and this came up during that luncheon, and it's come out at several points during this symposium. This is an industry that has moved from one primarily driven by engineering, because we always talked about the engineering shortage, to one that's driven by manufacturing. We are now into mass production, and so they're looking for those skilled trades, and they're not finding the numbers that they need. So that's a key development point that I think we're going to walk away, and we're going to see some changes and real growth and building on that, especially with children as they come up through school, and showing them that these skills like welding are a key piece to space.
And again, pulling on that, Melanie Strickland, who is one of the signatories of the, with her company, Slingshot, I had a chance to spend some time and talk with her about this, and there was a quote I want to share with you, and that DEI, again, diversity, equity, inclusion, is a core element of Slingshot's culture, and soon it will be a core element across our entire space industry. We're doing this because it makes a stronger team, it makes a stronger team, stronger and a stronger industry. It helps to helps us make better decisions, better products, and ultimately a safer and more connected world. I thought that was a pretty powerful quote that I wanted to make sure our audience got to hear. Final thoughts on that. I did see Steve Osakowicz up on the stage where he listed the 24 charter companies. You can find more on that press release on the Space Symposium website, spacesymposium.org. Go to the media section. We have a listing of press releases where you can find more details on that. But there are more companies that are coming forward and saying, we want to be a part of that. We want to make some changes there. Any other final thoughts?
This is an industry that competes with each other. These people fight all the time. They don't agree on much, but they agreed on this. That's pretty powerful.
That was very powerful.
Yeah, definitely the word has gotten out about this DEI pledge, because after our story was published today, I heard from a few companies, oh, I didn't know about this. How do I sign up? Who do I talk to? So definitely the word has gotten out, and I think if now we have 24 companies, we're going to see many, many more.
I expect before the symposium's over, there will be a listing of even more companies. But it's something to keep an eye on. And again, numbers tell the story. And at future symposium, I expect that there will be some of the DEI pledge progress reports that need to be shared. So in the closing time that we've got here, we thought we'd give you a snapshot of what's been trending on social media. And again, we've got a snapshot or an image that we'll put up here that sort of talks about what has been said today. If you're interested in following us on social media, obviously, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We've been putting a lot of pieces out there. I know on LinkedIn, the piece on the diversity, equity, and inclusion is getting a lot of response. We're hearing from a lot of different people. How do I take part in that? We're also getting lots of responses as to the build out of the exhibit floor. Again, as you probably can hear, there are a lot of people out there, and it's hard to hear us think as we're standing here next to each other, because again, there's a lot happening here on the floor, but there's a lot happening all over the campus. So, closing thoughts for the day. What are you looking for next in Symposium?
Really, I want to keep pulling on this commercial space thread. This is, it's been coming for a while. A lot of us have predicted this. I've been to 19 space symposiums. I think we've talked about this at every one. It just seems so real. This seems like the moment that it's going to take off.
I expect to continue to hear more, not just about national security, but about the big announcement that we heard today from Amazon, that they're buying a huge amount of launch services from 3 companies that are not SpaceX. So this is a big story for the industrial base, for the space industrial base, the launch industrial base, and we've been doing a lot of reporting on it today, but we expect to continue to do follow-up reporting tomorrow.
And I would commend to you, our audience, to take a look at Sandra's reporting at Space News. They do a phenomenal job. I would also commend to you the phenomenal work that Tom Roeder and the research and analysis team do with the Space Report. These are resources that help tell the story of today's global space ecosystem, and that's a critical point that I think you see behind us. And if you were here, you would be literally seeing an Epcot of space. Australia, Italy, the UK, Japan, we have representations. We have over 40 nations that are here. And again, what's even more impressive, as an example, with the Australia Pavilion, they have 42 companies that they brought to be a part of this. So we're seeing the health of a greater global ecosystem going on here. And again, more companies that are providing force multipliers for both national security, economic security, and I will say, driving more innovation in their countries. We will have more for you tomorrow. But again, you can continue to follow us on social media. The hashtag is 37Space, as well as hashtag Space Symposium and hashtag Space Foundation. We are grateful for your time. We thank you for sharing it with us, and we'll see you tomorrow at another day at Space Symposium. Thank you.